Hey guys, I'm gonna make this a quick video. It's something I want to discuss about stereos, at least as far as I know about stereos. And it's the concept of diminishing returns. Many of you have been watching me with my fun trying to get the touring stereo upgraded. And, I tried to find the cheapest way to do it. But and some of you emailed me, and I'm actually talking to someone right now, and it brought this idea up that I wanted to make this quick video to talk about diminishing returns and what you should focus on first. This will go for many different people, more for EX owners, maybe LX too. I don't know much about the LX, but the EX owners than even for the touring owners. But there are diminishing returns on what you do. Now, the way I did my stereo and started with is I went pretty much all out. I put a sub at first, and an additional sub helped a lot on the touring. But the touring already had an okay sounding sub. It was the screechiness that was the real big problem. It's the amplifier that is the real big problem in the touring. And I was trying every which way to do it without changing the actual amplifier itself. And it turns out you got to change the amplifier if you're going to play at high volume, and you want to get rid of all that screechiness because there is a limit to what can be done. That's with the touring. With the EX, it's a little different. EX doesn't come with a sub, generally. It also comes with different speakers. I believe the speakers in the EX are Pioneer-based speakers. I've listened to an EX. I sat down and played some music in the EX, and it doesn't have as much screechiness as the touring, not by a long shot, and it also doesn't have that dreaded center speaker. Now, when dealing with a upgrade, not all of us have a lot of money to put into this. I'm pretty much spending a lot of money to upgrade, and of course I have a path to get good deals on some of this stuff, so it's not really a fair comparison. But when dealing with upgrades on an EX, say on an EX, your speakers are really not all that horrible. They're not good, not by a long shot. But they're not horrible in the sense that you are stuck with a DSP that is blasting the highs so high that you can barely stand it, even at high volumes. I fooled around with the EX. I have an individual I'm talking to right now who's doing a changeover. It's going to change their drivers and their tweeters, and then they're going to put a sub and so forth, and they're doing matting. And they were suggesting, to let me know that the matting, like the Dynamats and stuff like that, is very expensive. Yeah, it's very expensive, and that's also something I use as diminishing returns. This is my personal advice for all of you, based on all the money I've been spending. Because there's still more work to do. I'm changing my amplifier. I don't have a choice. I have to change the amplifier. If you own an EX, the best way, as a first step on your system, to make your system sound much better, and, very simple, is to put a sub with an amp in it. That is by far the best way you can upgrade your system. You can get away with the current speakers if you have a good sub that can handle your bass and low-end mid to take care of it. You do that, and it can take a system that you're not happy with at all and turn it into a reasonably good sounding system for you until you can save the money to move up to change all the speakers to much better speakers, and you can afford the matting if you want to put the matting. Because the sub is the biggest change you can make in that car. That, and you'll have to disconnect the ANC. You have to disconnect the ANC if you put a sub, otherwise you're going to get feedback and weird noises. It's no good. Very easy. You've seen it on one of my videos. It's very easy to disconnect. It's very easy to get to. Anybody can do it. I can do it. You can do it. With a sub on something like that, don't know if there's an external amplifier on that car. I don't believe so. I believe it comes right out of the head unit. But you're going to want a line converter, like something by Audio Control, like an LC2i, which will literally can sum your tweeters and can sum your speakers into take your speaker outputs that are coming out of your head unit and sum them down into a signal that can go through RCA ports so you can hook up a subwoofer. It'll also have something called AccuBass which will make it possible to bring back the bass that is usually cut out of a lot of systems. In this case, it's going to be cut out of an EX. It's going to be cut out a lot because you don't even have a subwoofer generally in that system to handle low-end bass, and they don't want those cheap speakers they put in your car to blow up. So it has the AccuBass built into it and all that. I don't think the LC2i is too expensive. We're going to look it up, and I'm going to put it on screen here. I'm going to look it up and put it on. You're going to want that. Then you're going to need a sub and an amp. Just a good monoblock sub, something, you don't have to pay a tremendous amount. Just get yourself a reasonably good amplifier and a subwoofer with an enclosure. For all of you to start with, one way to do it, and, yes, this can all get very expensive. I think the LC2i is like $60-$70 or something like that. We're going to look it all up and add all the things together. A monoblock amp, a reasonable monoblock amp, you're probably going to pay about $100 for 300 watts, which is more than enough for most average people. Then you got a sub and an enclosure. What are you talking about for another one? And about $150 for an enclosure with a 12-inch sub, 12-inch sub. Prices vary. I mean, you can go on the cheap, but be careful about your cheapness. Get yourself some good stuff. It's going to have to hook directly to your battery. Just hook it to your battery. If you decide to use an amplifier, say, by audio control, some of them, they have something called GTO technology, which is great turn on. In which case, it'll just it'll hear the signal coming from the radio directly through the lines, and it'll turn itself on. So you won't have to have a line in to turn it on. You'll just need power and ground, which you can do through your battery, right underneath, right between your the passenger driver's seat. One way to get around most of this, to make it a little easier for some of you, there is a device, a unit called. It's the Kicker Hideaway sub, and I've used it many times. It's made specifically for situations like this. You probably won't even need a line level converter because you'll be able to run the lines directly out of your woofers in your car in order to grab whatever little bass is coming out of that, and it'll be able to run off of that. Those things go for about $250 to $300. The nice thing about the Hideaway is it's a compact. It's hard to say. It's an 8-inch sub with a built-in amp, all in a single small little box, which means you can pretty much hide it anywhere. I don't know how much you can hide it inside the car itself. You can put it in the trunk, that's for sure. Gives off a lot of sound. Now, if you're one of those people who want to drive around with the kind of sub sounds that you want people to point it at the car and say, "Yes, officer, that's the one that gave my grandfather the heart attack," the Hideaway ain't going to do it for you. But if you want good, solid sub sound, that's a good way to go. The only thing that may not work with it, with the EX, is I don't know how much of the low end is cut out by the built-in head unit of the EX. Because they're pushing these all through 6.5-inch main drivers and 1-inch tweeters, there may not be a lot of low end built in to make sure you don't blow anything up. I don't know how much they've chopped it off to save the speakers. I'm hoping not much, because it's not considered a premium system. I'm hoping they're just letting the full spectrum come through, and you'll pull it. If that's a situation, you might be limited at some of the bass you're going to pull out of it, but it's definitely worth a try. The Hideaway is a fantastic sub, and it's a full enclosure, and you're pretty much paying about the same price, if not even less, for something that you can move around easily, give you a lot of good thump, and so forth. But I wanted to bring up the whole idea of doing your sub first. In this case, especially if you're on a budget. I mean, if you got like $2,000 to spend on a system, then dudes, you can go all out. You got enough money to get yourself a couple of good amps, some good speakers, some good matting, have it installed, and a sub with a woofer, and all that. You're fine. But if you're stuck on a budget of like $400 or $500, your best bet's to put your money into your sub first. And save your money, because that'll get you the best bang for your buck. After that, you have a diminishing returns of going to, say, your drivers. Change your drivers. That'll make a good change, too. They'll sound much better. But you don't have to get good drivers. You can't go from crap to medium crap. You have to get reasonably good ones. I am in talks with someone right now. He's found some speakers for a good price. I don't know. I think just about anything you find out there, as long as they're not paper garbage or out of an old 1980s GM car, is going to sound or going to be better than most of the speakers in the car right now. But remember, if I am correct, I know the ones in the Touring are Foster speakers, but I'm pretty sure the ones in the EX are Pioneer. And then while they may not be the high-end Pioneers are not exactly terrible speakers. They're not super duper, but they can make some reasonably good speakers. So be careful about that. That would be your next step. Would be to replace that. After that, then I would recommend your sound dampening. Any additional sound dampening you might have to do. The sub may bring up some rattles, but mostly no, especially if it's not built into the deck itself. I get a lot of rattles that I have to work with because it's literally, the sub is built into the deck, so the whole deck is shaking the entire car. So I just wanted to bring up this so people don't waste too much of their money going for such diminishing returns to begin with. Start with a sub. Start with a sub. I'm begging all of you, start with your sub. That's the best way to get better sound out of your car to begin with. Especially if you're on a very tight budget right now. And it'll give you enough of an improvement that you won't feel miserable for maybe the 5 or 6 months you need to save up for the next step in your upgrade. Me, I have enough money right now to go the whole route. I tried to go cheap. You saw what happened. It's been an ordeal. But I want people to know that, so you understand and learn from my mistakes. Let me spend all the money and be miserable. Don't waste it on you. Touring owners is a little different. I've disconnected ANC and the car's fine without the ANC at this point, with all the speakers changed. When only half the speakers were changed, it was a problem, and the ANC was necessary. I'm still trying to get the rattles out with the sub built into the deck. It's a bit of what you would call. See, here's the aphasia happening right here. I can't even think of the word. Yeah, everyone says, yeah, you get old. Like, no, it's like this all the time with me. I'm going to do a video about my problem one day. But with the sub, it's pride. I want the whole thing in that 1 8-inch sub. I don't need a 12-inch. I have a 12-inch. I could hook it in there, and I wouldn't have to worry too much about the rattles then, because it would all be enclosed in the box itself, and any incidental rattles would be easy to fix. But when you got it actually as part of the structure of the car, like this 8-inch that I have in the deck, then the whole car structure gets shook, and there's a lot more rattles involved. I guess I'm just too prideful. I want to try to make it so I can do it with that 1 8-inch in there. And I'm going to work my ass off, and I'm going to work my poor friend's ass off to try to get it done. And he's probably going to end up strangling me one of these days over it. But, if you go with an external sub, you're going to get some rattles here and there, but you can deal with them better. But if any of you guys have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. Verdier400@gmail.com. If you want to talk to me on the phone, we can talk. But I think I pretty much put it out here right now. I want to make sure you guys don't go on the rosy path the wrong way with me, with this system. Change your subs first. Put a sub in, especially EX people. A sub. If you don't have a lot of money, get the money together for the sub. Try Hideaway if that's going to work for you. Look into it. It's got a bass knob control and everything. It's a nice unit. It's expensive, but you got to remember, you're getting the amp, 150 watts and an 8-inch woofer. And yeah, 8 inches may not seem like a lot. Well, I wish, but it can put out a good thump, and it can really smooth out your music very nicely, even when you have mediocre speakers in the main compartment. And it might be small enough to put somewhere in the cabin. I don't know where. I know the seats are pretty low. At least the EXs, you're not stuck with power seats, so you have no motor under there. So it's possible you might be able to get under a seat. Although the seats are pretty low. All right, I've ranted enough. Turned into 14 freaking minutes. Too long. I wanted this out. Very important for you guys to know. And I wish all of you the best of luck. And any of you want to talk to me, please feel free. Take care. This is Verdier. Out.